right, so this is going to be another movie review. This one's called Under Siege 2 Dark Territory. The Steven Seagal hit blockbuster movie that showed the world his split personality and his lack of talent and his body odor. Sorry. Dude, I'm trying to do a bad impression of Space Ice. I did post the link to the Space Ice review. I'm giving this 3 out of 5 stars. This movie stinks, but it does have some explosions and really, really brief nudity. So it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. This is the mid-90s when Seagal's career started going downhill. He wanted to be a producer and a director. In fact, I better give him producing credit in this one. And once these kind of action movie stars get their big ego and they want to do this, that, and the other, that's when they're that's when their careers start to decline. I've seen it so many times, not only with Steven Seagal, but Jean-Claude Van Damme, Arnold Schwarzenegger, what's that guy's name? Sylvester Stallone, that guy. Yeah, they're all egomaniacs. They're obsessed with money. And this is the problem. This is the result. I was disappointed that Steven Seagal's girlfriend wasn't even in this movie. He had a Playboy playmate as a girlfriend in Under Siege. And now he's got a black boyfriend? Dude, what's going on? Why does Karate Man think that Steven Seagal still has talent? After all those movies when he didn't play director or producer, yet we're supposed to believe that he still has talent in the mid-90s? No. And the sad part, the really sad part, is that I have to sit through a couple more. Namely, On Deadly Ground and Fire Down Below. So I am not looking forward to the mid-90s Steven Seagal stuff. The early 90s, okay. Maybe 2006 is going to be one of those so bad that it's good type movies. But I do not recommend this time period in Steven Seagal's career. This movie is 100 minutes? Are you kidding me? Why? It seemed like 2 hours on Amazon Prime. Steven Seagal doesn't do much besides climbing on top of a train and running from a crashing train. What happened to all of the hostages? I don't understand what's going on with this flick. Anyways, Under Siege 2 Dark Territory is a 1995 U.S. action thriller film directed by Jeff Murphy, starring Steven Seagal as the ex-Navy SEAL Casey Ryback, set on board a train traveling through the Rocky Mountains from Denver to Los Angeles. It is a sequel to the 1992 film Under Siege, also starring Seagal. The title refers to the railroading term that the subject train was traveling through dark territory, a section of railroad track that has no train signals and in which communications between train dispatchers and the railroad engineers were impossible. The film was produced by Seagal along with Amon Milchan and Steve Perry. The film's cast also included Eric Bogosian, Everett McGill, Morris Chestnut, Peter Greene. Peter Greene? Oh, I forgot to put Peter Greene in the description box. Peter Greene. All right. I put Peter Greene in the description. We've got the great Kurtwood Smith, who was in can't even remember. Kurtwood Smith. We like Kurtwood Smith on this channel. Kurtwood Smith. And oh, he was in Fortress. We like Kurtwood Smith in Fortress. Anyways, it's got Katherine Heigl. I have no idea who these lamestream are, who these modern actors are. In addition to Seagal, Nick Mancuso, Andy Romano, and Dale Dye also reprised their roles from the first film. We forgot Andy Romano and Dale Dye. Andy Romano Dale Dye. How could I forget those two? All right. So I got all the names in the description and the tags. Hopefully YouTube won't cut up my video after 8 minutes. All right. Following his retirement from the U.S. Navy, Casey Ryback settles in Denver, where he runs a restaurant. He receives news of the death of his estranged brother, James Ryback, in a plane crash. Casey meets James' daughter, Sarah, whom he will accompany to Los Angeles to attend his funeral. The two board the Grand Continental, a train traveling through the Rocky Mountains from Denver to Los Angeles. On board, they befriend a steward porter named Bobby Zacks and the train's chefs. What would you rather have, Bobby Zack or a Playboy Playmate? I think I'll go for the Playboy Playmate. As the train reaches the Rocky Mountains, a group of terrorists flag it down and they murder the engineer and brakeman. These guys are not really terrorists. They're more like disgruntled former CIA employees. The group, led by former U.S. government employee and computer genius Travis Dane and Marcus Penn, cut the train phone lines, and they take the passengers and staff hostage, herding them into the last two cars. It's amazing what a military guy can do when he fires the weapons genius. I thought they were all independent contractors, but apparently they work directly for the U.S. government in this movie. Casey kills one terrorist, then Casey slips away, and we're subject to the eternal boredom of watching Steven Seagal run endlessly on the top of the train, jumping between cars. For underground targets, Dane worked on Grazer 1, a top secret military satellite tectonic weapon. The military fired Dane, who later faked his suicide. And now he's mad. He's going to blow up the Pentagon because some dude in the military fired him. For what, we don't know. They just thought he was crazy. So now they're going to pay the price. He's out for retribution against his former employers. He wants to blow up a Chinese chemical plant. And supposedly there's a nuclear reactor underneath the Pentagon. This was produced by Regency Enterprises, New Regency Productions, and Seagal Naso Productions, distributed by Warner Brothers. Release date July 14, 1995, running time 100 minutes. Country, United States, language English, budget $60 million, and box office $104.3 million. Dane threatens two former Department of Defense colleagues with burning soldering irons in their eyes unless they reveal codes to take over Grazer. Despite their disclosures, they are thrown from the train over a deep valley after the codes are confirmed to work. Middle Eastern terrorists have offered Dane $1 billion to destroy the eastern seaboard by using Grazer to target a nuclear reactor located under the Pentagon. Dane demonstrates Grazer to investors by destroying a Chinese biological weapons facility that was passing itself off as a fertilizer production plant. Must have been Saddam Hussein's weapons of mass destruction, and he's hiding them in China. After one investor offers an additional $100 million, despite the weapon's primary intention for subterranean targets, Dane destroys an airliner carrying the investor's ex-wife. Must have missed that part. The U.S. government has difficulty locating Dane or Grazer. When officials destroy what they think is Grazer, Dane explains the NSA's best intelligence satellite was destroyed. Good riddance. His location cannot be determined as long as the train keeps moving. With Zach's help, Casey takes matters into his own hands. He faxes a message to his restaurant, which relays it to Admiral Bates. Bates quickly understands that Dane and the terrorists are on the train, and Bates reluctantly approves a mission by 2F-117 stealth aircraft to destroy the train. Sachs discovers they are on the wrong tracks on a collision course with the Southern Pacific bulk freight train carrying gasoline tank cars. Casey kills the mercenaries one by one, and he releases the hostages, but Dane uses his computer skills to find the F-117s and then retarget Grazer to knock them out before they complete their mission. All right. So now I understand how the hostages are saved. I guess he got his black sidekick buddy to separate the train before they collided. That's what happened. Aware of Casey's past, Penn uses Sarah as bait to lure him into a fight, but Casey gains the upper hand, and Casey fatally breaks his neck. Ryback finds Dane about to depart in a helicopter hovering over the train. When Dane informs Casey that there is no way to stop the satellite from destroying Washington, Casey shoots him. The bullet destroys his computer, and it injures Dane, who falls out of the window of the train. Control of the satellite is restored at the Pentagon, and the satellite is destroyed by remote control 1 second before it would have fired on the Pentagon, just before the two trains collide. And we got the most awesome explosion here at the end. But we had to wait the whole dang movie to watch one explosion. And you'd think that Steven Seagal would have been incinerated in this explosion, but he's like Van Diesel in the Fast and Furious franchise. Nothing can kill him. The crash happens on the trestle, resulting in a massive explosion that destroys the bridge. The explosion kills Scotty, the mercenary driving the train. Ryback races through the exploding train. If I have to watch Steven Seagal run one more time, I'm gonna punch the screen. He exits the carriage, and he grabs a rope ladder hanging from the helicopter. Dane, who survived the gunshot and the crash, also catches onto the ladder. This guy's indestructible too. This Dane dude. And he's supposed to be the bad guy, but he's just a goofball with frizzy hair. He hangs onto the helicopter, but Dane falls to his death after Casey shuts the door on severing Dane's fingers. Casey informs the Pentagon that the passengers are safe, having previously detached the last two cars from the rest of the train. Okay. That explains how the passengers were saved. I completely forgot about that part. Because I wasn't really into this movie all that much. The film was an early credit for Matt Reeves, who wrote the script with a friend of his in college. Reeves later said, there was a big action spec market, a lot of movies that were selling, and so we wrote this movie with my thought being, and then I was able to finance my student film, and that way I can become a director. The script was called Dark Territory at one stage and End of the Line at another. When they finished writing it, the spec market crashed and it didn't sell. But the script was optioned by Warner Brothers, who decided to turn the film into a sequel to Under Siege. That explains the lack of continuity and the disappearance of of Seagal's Playboy bunny girlfriend. Reeves said the film was originally meant to be very much like a Die Hard movie. Big surprise there, which I guess Under Siege really was too. Yeah, that's the only two things they have in common, except the difference was that in Under Siege movies, that tension is how soon before Seagal will rip out somebody's larynx. And what I love about Die Hard was this idea of the underdog, that there's this guy, especially in that first movie, who's a cop from New York who doesn't even have shoes. And somehow he has got to save this building, save the day by blowing up private property. That was what that movie was supposed to be, but it didn't end up being that. According to Morris Chestnut, Seagal rewrote many of the scenes he was in. No wonder this movie is average. The only time they really stuck to the script or had ad libs was the stuff when he really wasn't there. It was a lot of stuff because at the time I think he was flying a helicopter. He was doing something. He would come to the set, okay, you're going to say this, I'm going to say this, and this is going to happen, and then you do that. That's how we did a lot of that movie. Part of the film was shot in Chatsworth's Stony Point Park. The production painted some of the boulders, which upset rock climbers who claimed it made them unsafe. The locomotive scene in the film had previously appeared in the 1985 film Runaway Train, a far superior train movie compared to this one. We love Runaway Train on this channel. The great canon flick with John Voight and and Eric Roberts. Director Jeff Murphy called the film a very dreary process and very highly contentious at the time. Lots of arguments and stuff. There was a point during the editing where I observed this incredibly high energy beast emerging, and I didn't know where it had come from because there wasn't any of that energy on the set. It seemed to grow out of the editing process. Under Siege 2 opened at number 2 at the box office under Apollo 13 in 2,150 theaters, and it made $12,624,402 for the weekend. Not a bad haul for 1995. On Rotten Tomatoes, the review aggregation website, the film has an approval rating of 34% based on 32 reviews and an average rating of a very low 4.73 out of 10. The site's critical consensus states utterly forgettable and completely unnecessary. Under Siege 2 represents a steep come down from its predecessor. You can say that again. And an unfortunate return to form for its star. On Metacritic, the film has a score of 52 out of 100 based on reviews from 21 critics indicating mixed or average reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of A- on an A+ to F scale. Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times gave the film a 3-star rating in his review, while Peter Rainer of the Los Angeles Times wrote that the action upstaged the actors. Leonard Clady of Variety magazine notes Seagal's confidence, but says he is betrayed by his limited performance. Clady praises the villains for their performances, but says they and others are saddled with pedestrian dialogue and motivation. Seagal was later criticized for his behavior during the film. Jenny McCarthy unsuccessfully auditioned for a role in the film. Too bad. She said Seagal auditioned her and asked her to take off her clothes. Katherine Heigl, who was 16 at the time the film was made, said that on the last day of filming, Seagal told her, "You know, Katie, I got girlfriends your age." And I said, "Isn't that illegal?" And he said, "They don't seem to mind." Steven Seagal doing a little jailbait maneuver in this one. Seagal was later criticized for his behavior during the film. Oh, we already went through that. Okay. In October 2016, Seagal announced that a script for a third film was being written by Woody Mister. By December of that year, Mister stated that the script was completed, and whether it moves forward was up to Seagal and studio executives. The pair collectively stated that the product would be a joint venture production between Steamroller Productions Atlanta Productions. In November 2021, it was announced that the reboot of the original film series was in development. Timo Tangento will serve as director, with a script written by Umair Alim based on an original story co-written by the pair. The project will be a joint venture production between Warner Brothers Pictures and Max Original Films, and the project is intended to be released exclusively via streaming on HBO Max. Production is expected to commence after the completion of Tajanto's work on The Last Train to New York. Now let's get to the IMDb page, shall we? Under Siege 2, Dark Territory, 1995. Rated R, an hour 40 minutes. Gets a 5.6 out of 10 on the IMDb. 52,000 ratings, somewhat popular, but not hugely popular. Casey Ryback hops on a Colorado to LA train with his niece to start a vacation. Early into the trip, terrorists board the train and terrorists use it as a mobile headquarters to hijack a top secret destructive U.S. satellite. Well, the satellite can blow up Chinese chemical factories and the Pentagon, the whole eastern seaboard. All right, here's a more flattering review from Lucum 52760. Lucum 52760 is giving this a 7 out of 10. I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. And the title of Lucum 52760's review on IMDb is simply an awesome old school 90s action thriller. I don't know about that. More like this: under siege on deadly ground, above the law and hard to kill. Producer John Peters drew the ire of Steven Seagal after the action star returned from a vacation in Indonesia. Oh, here we go. Here's the review by Lucum 52760. Simply an awesome old school 1990s action thriller. Steven Seagal was so darn awesome back in his glory days of the 90s. I grew up watching him beat the crap out of street scum and terrorists, and I always come back to his classic flicks. No matter what is said about Steven Seagal these days, he was a hero to me growing up, and I still love his old films and genuinely enjoy most of his now low-budget, cheap B flicks. I'm more interested in those myself, as I still get to see Seagal taking out the trash in today's world. He's just gotten older, more rugged, and out of shape, as he's only human. Seagal is an action legend as much as Stallone, Schwarzenegger, or Van Damme are, because each had their glory days of the box office, and they're all old now. Yeah, they all suffered the same fate. Schwarzenegger got man boobs just like Dolph Lundgren. My favorite Seagal film is his action masterpiece, Out for Justice, 1991, which I did not like. It's an incredible, brutal action thriller. And my second fave is his excellent urban voodoo gang action thriller, Marked for Death, 1990. Now that is a decent flick. I recommended that one, and even Jeff Jaffe wanted to check out Marked for Death. Both superb films from the awesome 90s that I constantly watched on video. I loved Seagal during his 90s peak, and I also liked his serial killer thriller, The Glimmer Man, 1996, and Hard to Kill, 1990. And of course, his Under Siege films, which brings me to this excellent underrated sequel, Under Siege 2, Dark Territory. Part 2 brings back Casey Ryback, Seagal, from the classic first film, and it sticks him on the train full of deadly terrorists who have stolen dangerous technology that can zoom in and hit a target from space. Pretty cool and typical 90s action thriller stuff. It's amazing what a CD-ROM can do to a satellite. Seagal is his usual cool and calm self until he needs to be deadly, and Seagal is pretty much like he is in all of his films except Out for Justice. Anyway, he brings all the kick-ass stuff we want to see, and the film feels like Die Hard on the train, and that's fine. It's all good. I say skip this one and watch Runaway Train. I actually have always preferred this underrated sequel over the classic first film, but that's just my opinion. Yeah. Are you out of your mind, dude? Another great part about this flick is the awesome know the face selection of movie bad guys as the terrorists. We have the always great Peter Greene Zed from Pulp Fiction and Judgment Night. We have the intense Jonathan Banks from 48 Hours in Beverly Hills Cop and Free Jack. And we have the rugged and icy cold scary Everett McGill from Wes Craven's The People Under the Stairs and Silver Bullet, a great cast of intense and great character actors as villains. Here Seagal must defeat the terrorists and save his young niece, a very young Katherine Heigl. And Seagal kicks plenty of arse. And Seagal has a fantastic fight scene with the big main bad guy, Marcus Penn McGill. It's a bloody and brutal fight. All in all, a slick looking and totally 90s cool action thriller. Well, you got to wait a long time for Seagal to do any kick-ass fighting, as this guy puts it. And you got a long time for the final explosion, which was impressive, I had to admit. This film does have its moments, but it is few and far between, I'm afraid. I'm sorry to say. And the Seagal fight at the end did not impress me that much. Really? He's just doing his Aikido stuff of doing the guy's butcher knife, I guess. Producer John Peters drew the ire of Steven Seagal after the action star returned from a vacation in Indonesia. And Seagal discovered that Peters had hired Gary Busey to play the villain. Busey famously played one of the villains in the first film, who was dispatched via explosion. Matters got worse when it was discovered that Busey had a pay or play deal, which meant he got his fee if he was in the film or not. Ultimately, Busey was paid his $750,000 salary, which allegedly came out of Seagal's pocket as a producer. But he didn't work a day on the picture. Busey and Seagal couldn't stand each other. When the train is stopped so the mercenaries can retrieve the CD, after the train is shown slowly reversing backwards, we see Dane talking to Penn. Behind Dane, there's a window showing the train is still moving and fast. Quotes, Ryback has been revealed as the intruder, supposedly dead. Penn, when she shot the intruder, did you see the body? Mercenary number one. No, just an S-load of blood, and I figured if you get run over by a train, Penn smacks the mercenary one hard. Penn, slow and menacing, did you see the body? Mercenary one says, I assumed he was dead. Penn says, assumption is the mother of all F-ups. An R2 uncut version has been released in Germany. I'd like to see that. Edited into Stealth Fighter, 1999. Soundtracks After the Train Has Gone, written and produced by Steven Seagal and Todd Smallwood, performed by Greg Allman. Abraham McDonald, Todd Smallwood, Pepper Mache as Gene McClane, and Steven Seagal. Greg Allman appears courtesy of 550 Music. Background vocals by Erica Bell and Tori Baker from the Hamilton High Gospel Choir. Fred Martin, choir master. Release date July 14, 1995. Country of origin United States. Language English, also known as Trong Vong Vei 2. Filming locations Pine Cliff, Colorado, USA. That's where the Rock Tunnel was filmed. Production companies Warner Brothers, New Regency Productions, and Seagal Naso Productions. Box office $60 million estimated. US and Canada $12,624,402. Gross US and Canada $50,024,083, and gross worldwide $104,324,083. And so it made pretty good money, I guess, depending on how much they spent on marketing costs. Tech specs, runtime 1 hour 40 minutes. It's way too long. You should have cut it down. I don't want to see Steven Seagal running around until the end of time. Sound mix SDDS Dolby and aspect ratio 1.85 to 1. So there you have it, my Under Siege 2 Dark Territory review. And going down my list, I have number 1, Homeless But Human, 2023. Number 2, Savage Justice, 1988. And number 3, Cuban Rebel Girls, 1959. So those are the next 3 on my list. I don't have any plans for Friday night. I should be able to do a Homeless But Human review on Friday night, followed by a couple more movie reviews on Saturday, and a couple more on Monday. I should be able to get to On Deadly Ground on Monday, in case Karate Man's watching till the end. I don't see anybody in the chat room, though. So On Deadly Ground is number 5 on my list. And my goal is to finish it off on Monday, because Monday is Veterans Day. It's a paid holiday. Woohoo! So I get to stay home all day and watch movies. I might even get to Santa and the Ice Cream Bunny. Oh, I'm sorry. Santa and the Three Bears, 1970. So Homeless But Human, 2023 is number 1. Savage Justice, 1988 is number 2. Cuban Rebel Girls, 1959 is number 3. $2 Better, 1951 is number 4. On Deadly Ground, 1994 is number 5. And Santa and the Three Bears, 1970 is number 6. Those are the next 6 on my list. I did have Rocket Attack USA on my list, but when I started watching it, it looked oddly familiar to me. Of course, it's a great flick. I've already watched and reviewed it on YouTube, so I'm not sure how I missed that. initially by having on my list for no apparent reason. But I was able to correct that. I'm pretty good at recognizing movies that I've seen before, believe it or not. I've seen thousands. But ask me about actor names, and I'm a little sketchy. I need help from Karate Man. Speaking of which, I should add some more names here. Those two actors that I mentioned in the Lucum 52760 IMDb review. And then I got to give Steven Seagal and Greg Allman some music credits in the description. Laters.